watching Morning at NTV.
Well, good morning to you once again. Thank you so much for joining us for Tuesday's edition of Morning at NTV, the 18th of July, 2023. I am Priscilla Regina Nelwoga. In our kickstarter this morning, well, it's all about gloves, rising tensions in the FDC party, and the role of multi-party politics in Uganda in such a time as this, when we are a few years back to the polls in 2026. The backbone of it is the sharp gap that is growing among members of the FDC, springing from positions of leadership in scheduled grassroots polls. In turn, this week's grassroots polls were suspended by the FDC Electoral Chairperson, Wasswa Birigwa, ambassador, once the leading opposition party is struggling to overcome the mudtrap. And the big question is, how do they get to redefine themselves as a party contributing to multi-partisan politics here in Uganda? But before we have that conversation in detail with my guests in studio, let's have a flashback to what happened yesterday with the consultative meeting of FDC in Zambia.
The meeting at Sharing Hall in Zambia was attended by the party's Deputy President for Central Region, Elias Lukwago, several members of Parliament, former FDC MPs and party leaders from various districts. Chira Municipality MP Ibrahim Semujonganda, who convened the meeting, accused the party Secretary General Nathan Mafabi of securing money that was used during the 2021 general elections from unclear sources.
It was brought by the Secretary General, the Honorable Nandala Mafabi. The party president was one of the recipients. The president told us in a naked meeting that the amount he had received and kept at his home, he later passed it on to the party, I don't know which party.
Otherwise, the money that is being talked about, the treasury should know. The treasury does not know where the money came from. They don't know how it was used. The treasury did not receive it. It never reached Najana Nkumbi. It was being spent through somebody's house.
Semuju, who is also the party's spokesperson, says the money was used to buy vehicles among other items that were used during 2021 elections. He says such money is risky for the party.
I think the game plan is to fight so hard to push anyone who speaks about this man out of the FDC.
Beyond the money, the politicians who attended the Zambia meeting accused the top party leadership of frustrating internal party elections.
Amidst this turmoil, the President and Secretary General, together with their lieutenants, are pushing for an internal election. They themselves have said will cause a split. I genuinely don't know what their mission is. You say we are headed for a split when you go for an election. And then every day you are saying election must take place.
Me, I had no competitor in Kawepe for the FDC party ticket. But they tried to deny me from getting it. I had to kneel before Honorable Nandala in his office in Chambogo. Can you imagine?
Voted General Muntu for chairman, for president of FDC. And then that fight went up to the districts. I was fought and chased away from the party, but I've never left the party.
There is speculation that Semuju is likely to contest for top party position. He, however, could not deny or confirm his candidature.
I'm not here to declare a candidature. Please take note. That usually is at the tail end of the processes. If there are no elections, why should they not be?
The group says attempts to resolve the internal party controversies have failed.
1 month we suspended the elections and said let's have a naked retreat to resolve these matters internally. The month has elapsed without a naked retreat being organized. We said we were given this task by National Council. We have a report to be delivered by the elders led by the Honorable Nabuiso. Let's finish the process of the elders. One of the elders, Mr. Katembeya, is here, the others. Let them do the work of getting all the matters, you are getting to the bottom of this dirty money, and come back to the party. The party leadership will take a decision. That was not also given.
Several attempts to get Amuriat and Mafabi response to the accusations failed since they did not respond to our repeated calls and messages via the short message service. Juma Kiria, NTV.
Not actually as celebratory as that report actually ends. It's a battle so deep we hope to unearth here in our Kickstarter. Joining me for this unearthing of the battle, we do have Honourable Member of Parliament CHWA WEST and also an FDC member, and that is Honourable Phillip Ojara Okin. Good morning to you, Honourable.
Thank you for welcoming me here, and good morning, viewers.
Of course, we also do have Captain Francis Babu joining us for this debate to give us an insight on perhaps what's the way forward amidst all the storms that are happening in the political parties. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting and for having us here today. We hope it will be a good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We hope so too. And of course, we also do have online. We are being joined by Honourable Francis Mwijukye, who's the Member of Parliament, Buhweju County. Good morning to you, Honourable.
Good morning to you. How are you?
We're very good. We would like to actually start with you and give us a better explanation of what you spoke of yesterday. The Treasury is not officially aware of the money that is being talked about that was selectively bankrolled in some of the things that were party related, especially during the 2021 general elections. Could you give us more light in that regard?
You want more light in which regard?
The financing that is being questioned this morning.
Well, like you were told yesterday, there is an investigation that was carried out by the Council of Elders, and we are told the report is ready, and it is supposed to be given to us in the National Council, which is a few days from today. And it is to do with money that came to the party, for which the party leaders, most party leaders and members don't know the source. And whereas in the past we have had the way we do things as FDC, this is different. That the only person who knows how the money came, on how it was spent, on where it was spent is just the Secretary General. And therefore, even if it was his donation, even if it is money he got from a friend of the party, it should have been declared to the relevant party organs, and then would have known and then planned for it. But you're talking about money for which the Treasury does not know, for which the Finance Committee does not know, for which even the Secretariat at that time did not receive. And this is money that was spent from his house, spent in his vehicle. He decided on where to spend and how to spend, on buying vehicles. And by the time you buy 4 new vehicles in a campaign and average the vehicle of 400 million, you're talking about 1.6 billion just on vehicles. This would suggest that this is money that was in the billions. And so it is just information that's only known by him.
Very same regard, why haven't you then waited for the Elders Council to actually officially share the report with you, and then you respond with a consultative meeting?
Yes, that is what exactly should have happened. But you see, we have a situation whereby, whereas we are all waiting for the National Council, then the Secretary General and the Chairman Electoral Commission want to proceed with a process for which we say we halted as NEC and said, since this is a process that would want to see come out fairly, done freely, then we ought to first reconcile some of these issues, some of these misunderstandings. And so let's have an investigation, let's get a report, so that when we go in, we go as one people, one Uganda. But then we realize that there's somebody insisting on an election even before these issues are sorted. We're, for example, asking, it's just a week away. Why do you insist on this? 2, you have a national chairman who who says there is some disharmony. And for us to move together, let's halt this process and first deal with the other matters, and then we can proceed. And then the Secretary General says, we will not listen to you. So we are trying to understand what's the interest of the Secretary General. If it's not in the interest of the National Council, it's not in the interest of NEC. And remember, you have a NEC resolution that the process should be halted, but you have just 3 people who are insisting: the party president, the Secretary General, and now the electoral commissioner. So we really can't now sit and wait. In the past, we have had processes of this nature that have brought us challenges and problems like splitting. So we say we will not wait to split and then speak. Let's speak now, review, clean up, and then we can go for a process that will be in the interest of the party.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable. Returning to studio with me, let me start with Honorable PP Ojara. In regards to what happened, transpired yesterday, there's processes that are meant to be followed, but clearly they are jumping those processes to safeguard and protect the party's interests.
Yeah, let me just say that I think when you look at the way things are happening in my party, FDC, it deposits a situation whereby it looks as if we are not strong enough. We have not developed internal mechanism to absorb shocks, external shocks that normally come up. And I think there is a lot of high politics being done here. And the person who is playing this politics, which I believe is not internally within FDC, must be somewhere celebrating and laughing. So yeah, now the formula and the format I'm trying to use is working. Because when you look around, you look at all the political parties that are in existence now, in the side of the opposition, at least to some extent, we have FDC and also NUP. So these are the 2 political parties that are really giving headache to the current regime. And therefore, and when you do the analysis of what is going on in terms of the money, the source of the money, where the money is coming from, and the purpose of the money, which is not known, it is definitely meant to bring the party, the opposition party, down.
Okay.
And I would like to say that we have been as FDC trying our level best to have what we call a conflict resolution framework embedded within the party, so that we have these eminent people, eminent leaders, eminent elders who are able to resolve conflict within the party. But the way things are going, it is automatically very clear that we are not very solid as a party, and this has to be discussed in the various institutional framework that we have. We have the NEC, we have the National Council, we have the Delegate Conference, and I think if we are supposed to frame this, we need to discuss how we as a party can stand firm to absorb external shocks that normally come without, going everywhere and talking about it. This is my personal view.
All right, let's speak the opinion of the veteran politician in the House this morning, Captain Babu, in regards to what's happening in the FDC. We've had Honorable Francis dispensing the fact that they have needed to have a backup plan to sort of shock absorb what was yet to be when the report comes out in dispensing what the money is, where it has come from, what's the source of the money, if not discovered, what are the resolutions around it. And so how do you interpret what is happening to the FDC party, which ideally was the primary strong headache to the current regime?
Well, thank you very much. I think what we're seeing now is a symptom of something which is bigger than just the money. The political class in this country has got a little bit of a problem. And it's not only FDC, I'm talking about all the political class, including the other parties. What you're seeing in FDC today is happening in other parties, except the other parties maybe are handling it differently. What is happening is that we look at these parties, how were they formed? What was the basis of the formation of these parties? And once you have understood that, then you can begin to answer most of the questions. Where did the FDC members come from? And why did they form FDC? Why do people form the other party, the People's Power, and then eventually, and of course NRM itself? And a lot of people do not look at it. You have to look at the big picture. What is the problem with the political class? Now, a man like Mamdani one time talked about class formation within our society. There is a push, and then there is something else which comes, ideology of the party. The ideology, and therefore class formation in those parties, the social formation and the struggle between the different groups. Now, if we don't look at this, and this is in political economy, they have already told us about this. There's a thing going on, accumulating wealth, yeah, and people don't want to talk.
And that's on an individual level or on a collective level?
No, the class. I'm talking about the whole class of groups. Because of this antagonism between them, there is one trying to prove that he's a better person than the other one, for example. So we have this political class which is trying to outdo each other. And by all our political class, one thing people do not talk about is that the majority of people who make the money in this country and the small class which appropriate this money, it's totally unproportional. So there is a tendency, and it's very unfortunate. What is the ideological basis of FDC? Who formed it initially, and how was it formed? When he talks about the elders being ignored, why? Where these people came from, they ignored the elders there. They formed another elder. So people become old, yeah? And there's this tendency of saying, oh, Uganda, you got young parliamentarians, young people. There's that force which is being pushed. And I would like to say that the problem is bigger than just the money you're talking about.
Okay.
Because the money really ends up in this accumulation of wealth is not everybody's mind.
But Captain, as the saying goes, money talks.
Oh yes.
Yes.
The American finishes it by saying money talks, bullshit walks. Yes. Now, no, I was coming to that. Because of that, that basis, everybody is out there looking for money. Anybody with money, by putting it in, can control those parties. And I'm using this as a very clear thing, that money in our parties, people are using the word commercializing politics. That's the new thing everybody's been using. And when you're talking about commercializing, you're talking about elections only. No. Commercializing politics can also be in the formation of the parties. Who puts in the money? And in America, you had the people who make guns. They've got a gun law which allowed. So these gun people put a lot of money in one of the parties. So in this country, if there's another group that wants to put money in these parties, they will do so because of that primitive accumulation of wealth. Now, we must sit back and look at the character of our people. People have this belief that politicians are, anybody, you can go to a bus stage and pick up a politician. Politicians also have a talent. Among them, there are people with talent. Then among them, there are people who want to visibility. So they use all sorts of language. They even spin everything that is being done. Now, the money is just, if you like, it's a small thing. It's bigger. You've got to look at the big picture of the whole party. What the person says and what they do, and how they antagonize each other. So this antagonism, the conflict within the party, there are some experts who say whenever there is a conflict, eventually is bound to come out a better management system. So there's bound to be conflict in these parties when they are growing up. And this is an argument they have put up. Now, in this country nowadays, they use the word entrepreneurship. We are now entrepreneurial. Instead of saying we are now thieves, they have said we are now entrepreneurial. Others, you know, so the whole point is this. do people have the character of the party? What is the ideology of that party? Who is the character? Now, how did these people come? If you look very carefully, the formation of this party was mainly adversarial against the other party. Now, this adversarial meant not respecting the status quo. And therefore now, within the party, you've just said a few minutes ago, people are not respecting the status quo. What you said, we have a neck, they have said this, they have said that. But this has been the in thing for the whole party. Do not respect the status quo. So, in my sincere opinion, although this is happening in this one party, it has been happening in other parties. For example, I've known that in NRM they've had even committees set up to investigate this information. The other party, there's another party where they're about to kill each other because somebody bought a plot, another one built in a house, and so on. So what I'm trying to say is we need to be very, very careful. These people are the same political class. I'm not separating them. I'm not going to say FDC, I'm not going to say NRM, I'm not going to say the other parties. UPC had the same problem. DP had the same problem. So why are our parties in this country having problem? Is it the way they are formed? What is the ideology of these parties? Because one party, I was say, we must remove the man who is in power next week.
Well, Honorable PP here has the Constitution in brief before us on table. But we want to turn this to you. The Holy Book says that money is the root cause of all evil.
Yes.
And so there's evil out there, but what brings the evil forth to be seen is money. When we had the Secretary General being accused of the allegations, the money allegations, the counter for him to the spokesperson of the party was, if we were to analyze you yourself, how did you fund perhaps, for example, your 2021 general elections as CHWA Municipality Member of Parliament? You put in money, you injected money, and if we were to go just by publicity's sake, that was a lot of money. And if we were to question where that money came from, are members of the FDC willing to individually put their laundry on the table and say, this was the source of my money, this was the source of my money, that was the source of the other one's money, and then that can be put to rest?
I think we need to separate between two things here. There is a money that comes to the party, which has a very clear channel. You know, you need to have the NEC resolution, you need to have the National Council resolution, and then they state, you know, we need this money because of the activities A, B, and C. And then you now say, okay, now how do we get this money? Where is the source of this money? What are the terms and conditions of this money? That is for the institution, like, you know, FDC party. And for individuals, of course, maybe you can't say, well, because Honorable Phillip Okin Ojara is campaigning in CHWA WEST, then he has to declare the source of his money. Because it could be from his own business. It could be from well-wishers. It could be from friends. That is his personal money. So what we are talking about here, as my elder here has said, is the issue of the institutional arrangement. Do we have a concrete institutional arrangement which can be able to guide, for example? And for me, that's what is going on now in my party, FDC. It looks as if the Constitution, which is actually the guiding principle, is to a great extent being ignored. Because if the institution clearly states, and the policy documents of the party clearly states, that if we need money for party, you know, functioning, these are the steps that you should take. And then also you have to lay on the ground, on the table, this is the step we must take to get this amount of money. And these are the conditions. Because if you went to the bank to borrow money, you have to pay back that money. Now you are bringing money from a non-source to the party. Not, you said, okay, now we resolve as a party, maybe like we should not always reveal the sources of our financing. But that's very dangerous. Supposing it's that money as we are talking about now, Why can't you reveal it? Or at least the members of the party who decides on how this money is supposed to be generated should know the source of the money. And here we are. I mean, I want to concur with him. Is a big problem in all political institutions. It's not only in FDC. We have had even other political parties struggling with this. But as I say, there is somebody who is doing all this to kill, you know, this so-called opposition. There's somebody doing it. And that person, I believe, must be smiling now. He must be smiling. Because how do you give money because you want to destroy a party, and then the money goes, and then there is this schemist coming up. This wrangle, this hot bus and whatever. And you must be smiling because the game is already complete. And these are the kind of thing as political class in this country, which we need to avoid. Because what do we really stand for? He made mention of characters. What character do we want to exhibit to Ugandans whom we lead? Because to me, to a greater extent, the live blood of any country is actually the political class. Because they are the decision makers. They are the one who normally, you know, appropriate resources. They're the one who make policies. They're the one who make, you know, laws. I mean, that's the life blood, the life, whatever is the political class. But we need to go on a weighing scale. I don't want to blame anybody. I also can blame myself. We need to be on a weighing scale and weigh ourselves in terms of our character.
Speaking of weighing scale, it's not just the money exchanging hands here and there. There's also another underlying issue in the party. There's accusation of an alliance between the party president and the secretary general in regards to a national-wide tour that they've been conducting, and they've been moving up north. And I thought this is in the interest of expanding the party's territory, but seemingly within the party there's conflict of this particular activity.
I wouldn't really say I want to kind of apportion blame to anyone. And I would say, you know, Priscilla, whatever is happening is actually a litmus test. It's a show of, is the tip of the iceberg. And in terms of representation,
just to clarify, are they doing it in wrong or in right with the constitution and the mandate?
That's why I'm saying,
FDC?
you know, when we now tend to ignore this as a party, and even you have seen as a country, we have been ignoring this constitution. And as a party, if we tend to ignore the policy, the laws that are supposed to guide us in terms of our procedure, how we should move, then we are not going to move anywhere.
Okay.
We shall not move anywhere.
Captain,
then we actually cease to exist.
Honorable Phillip Ojara here says ignorance of their constitution has led them this far. Maybe that's a debate, but equally could be coupled with the fact that there's a lot of pressure now that they are receiving from a yet bigger opposition party, National Unity Platform. And so there's been maybe opportunities of panic here and there to ensure that they keep themselves at the center stage of opposition for the country?
Yeah, I think these are all indicators. And like I said earlier on, let's leave the conspiracy theories. What is happening, there is a new sense now in all these parties. Where do they get
a
their...
new sense or a new sense?
New sense, new.
Okay.
Where are they getting their money from? And what does our law say about the money going into these parties? And how much should a party have before an election? Because one party could have a lot of supporters and has a lots of money, and the other one does not have that kind of money. And the supporters could be different from different sources. Most of the people who support most of these parties are businessmen. And the businessmen will not support a party for nothing. There must be a reason why they are supporting. Because like he said, the party is a vehicle which first of all gets us leaders and puts them into the system. So once they go into the system, they appropriate money from the source, which is government, and then this money can be spread out to different areas. That's a very, very important point to understand. Therefore, before a party goes, do we allow them, for example, a party to get money from a foreign company or a foreign government? Once they get money from the foreign government, when they are in power, they will get orders from that foreign government. If they get this money from anybody who is anti the country, that could also happen. If they get somebody who is anti other party, that could also happen. So we have to be very careful where these parties get their money from. And therefore, in these constitutions, they know them. Most of them read those constitutions. They bypass them. If they can bypass a national constitution, this is nothing. So at the end of the day, do we have people who have got the class of being in a party and agreeing with the ideology and how that party should be run? So I think this is the nuisance I was talking about. And therefore, we need a law in this country. How much money should a party have? There should be a ceiling. That is the amount of money you should have when you are going to an election. Now, that happens in other countries. You cannot have more money than what the ceiling has been said. So that's one point we must look at. Therefore, we need to look into the funding of these parties generally. Now, this conspiracy theory, I've had a lot. You've just brought one that, oh, the other party was started to destroy this one. The other party was started to make this one weak. And the people who started it. So, again, that's a very important point to look at. People start a party to fight other parties, or do they start a party to give us an ideology so we can have a choice as Ugandans? But if you start a party because you are fighting another party, the chances are that party will be controlled by somebody who's got enough finances to make it go. Now, when you have too many parties also, there are very few funders. There will not be, people will not be there to give you money if you have many parties. And somebody will put his money there because he expects to get a favor from that party. Now, also that kind of money being given to the party, I get the biggest businessman to give me that party. When I get into government, I make sure he doesn't pay taxes. So all these things do happen. And therefore, that's where it is very, very dangerous how these parties are funded. Extremely important to know where the funds are coming from. Because
it puts in a position of always them.
So support. At the end of the day, I am not, by the way, what is happening in FDC is not, people have exaggerated it. And I am sorry, the people who are doing this in that party actually came from the ruling party, most of them. And they did exactly the same when they were in the ruling party. They're now doing it in FDC. Others came from other parties. And therefore they have come with their baggage and they are offloading it in FDC. Now, at the end of the day, the question will be, this also will teach us this business of moving from one party to another. Yeah? I don't want to use that word everybody uses, but going from one party to another every day is also something that we should think about very carefully. You find a man today is in this party because I've just seen one moving from one party to another party to another. I mean, it has now become that accumulation of wealth I've told you about. Oh, here I'll do better than I will do here. So these are the kind of problems we're having with our parties. And this gets me to my conclusion. I've been saying it for nearly a year. I don't think we know how to run parties. I think multi-parties are having problems because the actors in those parties cannot run them, cannot manage them. And therefore, this spills over even in government. It spills over even this. Now, we are using very nice words. The word is corruption. If there's corruption in a party, and that party goes in government, what do you expect them to do?
Continued corruption.
So we need to really be very careful when you are running this
Coming back to the money, Honorable PP, what are the feared suspicious sources of this money?
I would say, without fear of contradiction, is actually the NRM. That is the source.
Why the NRM?
And I think they have been doing it for quite some time. when you look at the election of 2021, I think, I don't know whether it was a decision by the party itself, but we have seen and we have known them coming to, for example, engage with the UPC. And we have seen, you know, a kind of transactional kind of arrangement. Money exchanging hands, flowing to UPC. Recently, DP, as my senior has said, now they are also dipping their hands in FDC. We are also assuming that they are dipping their hands in actually a NUP. So for the very purpose or for the very reasons, they know better. But also as political analysts, we are trying to imagine that maybe they want to kind of, you know, calm the ground for a soft landing of I don't know what, but maybe they want to calm the ground. Mm-hmm. We don't need a lot of criticism on us. We have to pull it down. And the only thing that they are using is just the money, as we have said. Mm. And it goes back to, you know, as you said, our national character. For example, if Phillip Okin becomes the president of a political party, how do I see it? Why should I even, what makes me to become a party president? Is it because I want to have this transactional deal? Mm-hmm. Or is it because I mean so well for the country and I want to put in place maybe the ideology, maybe the issues of how to govern the country, what are the issues that I've been seeing missing in the current, you know, governance system. So this depends on also the character. And I can tell you, Priscilla, when I look at this country across the board, I think for quite a long time, we have been messed up, especially the political class. We have been messed up. And I attribute this to the master, the headmaster of the country. Because he has stayed so long, and he has weighed off, you know, these eminent people. Mm-hmm. One of them is here, my senior here, off, you put these people off. And then this is the young generation that are coming up without any fundamentals, without any foundation, without any historical grounding of how, you know, politics is supposed to be, you know, done in the country. So the class, the political class we have now, I don't think they have what I would say a fundamental grounding on how politics is supposed to be executed in this country. Well, and that's what I see. Yeah. We have ignored the elders. We have ignored those who we have seen how they wait. We are glad we have not ignored the elder in this conversation. Dear elder in this conversation. This is what I see in this country.
He talks about the foundation here. The foundation of multi-partisan politics here in Uganda is also shaky. It's on the basis that because, you know, a certain ruling party wanted to look as if they can accommodate everyone and therefore allowed multi-partisan dispensation in the country, which was not existent previously for some years. So what was the initial purpose of multi-partisan politics in Uganda versus what is the foundation of multi-partisan politics across the bar?
Priscilla, thank you very much. I think the problem is bigger than what we converse. We go into political, we go into conspiracy theories and so on and so forth. But if you go back in the 1950s when the parties were formed, you find that the UNC, you find the DP, and UNC was formed on a particular area. It was actually Anglican, and the guy in there was a Muganda. The DP was a Catholic, and the guy there was a Muganda. So the parties were formed on sectarian basis. Now, that went on, and when it came to the Federation of East Africa, creating a problem for those parties, and there was a split, the UNC became UPC and UNC. So we've never really had parties that have been started on ideological thinking. So when we came to these parties, one was a revolutionary party, a revolutionary group which went out, fought, and started a party. Now, they had an ideology of being revolutionary. Are you with me? Now, within that revolutionary group, groups came up. The first group to come out from that revolutionary party was FDC. Right? Now, the other parties came out, realizing they could not fit in there. They came with a new thing. They thought it was new, but it had been started young and old. So they formed something, People's Power, and eventually the new party. But if you go back to when the parliament started, NRC and all that, we had activism, which came out from certain groups. We had the Young Parliamentarian Association. We had the other group, then we had the Reform Agenda, then eventually we had FDC. If you look at all those groups, they are within the party, and they started with activism. The activism was against a certain group of people. Now, that is not ideology. That's adversarial.
So then we can say none of the political parties have ideology.
Except one, which came with the revolutionary ideology. All now, right. When you go to that, and the game is to try and get rid of the other party out of power, not using the normal, which is methods of giving a better program than the other one. You now come to the competition. You know, Ugandans love to be politicians, but they hate to go into elections because there's competition. And that competition brings out certain traits. One of the traits, they fight. Another one, they call each other names. The other one, they put in money, so it becomes commercial. So this competition does bring out traits in some of these people. And then they keep on talking about ideology, but I've never seen a good ideology. Whilst our friends in Europe had an ideological thing because of the rich and the poor, and then you had communism and capitalism and socialism. Here, people are on a different thing, and some of them is which side of my bread is butter.
We have the horse's mouth here with us.
Yeah,
what is the ideology of FDC currently, apart from ousting the current regime?
I think that's a very...
which I would refer to as an agenda. That would be an agenda. Yes.
That's a very good question. And that's fundamentally what we have been grappling with as FDC. To explain what we really stand for. But when you scan through this constitution, you will definitely see the cross-cutting theme here is about change. I don't know whether we can say change is an ideology, but the cross-cutting thing in this constitution is about change. And change in terms of looking at the way the country is being governed. The way the country is being governed, the way the country is corrupted. Because I can see here, there is a zero tolerance, kind of push from the party to corruption. So when you look at this, and then you table it in the wider context of the political, ideological, landscape, you will see whether we are on the left wing or on the right wing. But when we look at the very policies and the document, then we say, wait, we are center right. I don't know whether we are center right, in terms of ideology, because you look at the policies, you look at the activities, you look at the issue of the constitution, then you can position FDC as a center right, political party, and for me that is the basis. Now, what is left is to explain to the ordinary man, what do you mean when we say you are center right, pursuing a center right, political ideology? What is it all about? So these are issues that we need to simplify, and I can say is kind of working, a work in progress within the party, to be able to deconstruct what we mean by center-right political ideology, which the FDC is pursuing. So he made mention of the NRM, revolutionary. I want to challenge him whether revolutionary is also an ideology. I mean, you are senior to me. But I don't think, maybe that's an activity. An activity may not necessarily be in my political science class. It may not necessarily be an ideology. And that's why, as you say, it is very, very difficult at the moment when you get all the political players and the political parties on the table and to say, this is what we subscribe to. is very difficult. Is very difficult.
Let's have a compare and contrast with the US that has had two political parties that have continuously seen the growth of the nation to be one of the superpowers currently. What is the translation of that for us having so many political parties versus let's have just two sides? This is what you believe, this is what I believe, ideology versus ideology, and let them be tested out against each other to see which one is right for the accorded time.
Yeah, I just want to make one point very clear. When I said revolution, they came as a revolutionary party. They had a 10-point program. And the 10-point program was very clear. It was a social strata starting from the economy onwards. So it was very clear that they were right in the middle. Not communism, not capitalism. They had a 10-point program. The Americans, their ideology doesn't differ very much. The two parties virtually have the same. They differ into very salient points. One of the biggest salient points they had, earlier on when the party started, one supported slave trade, and the other one did not. And in 1863, when they killed the then President of the United States, they had a war, a civil war. And the Civil War, the main basis was to stop slavery. Not only, but it was economic. Slavery was an excuse. But they were fighting because the South had the economy there was much more healthier than the one in the North. So they had a lot of problems. And if you want to go into that one, it's a little bit deeper. But the American thing was the two parties. If you look at the ideology, it's virtually the same. If you look at them, the way they want to treat other countries, their foreign policy, it doesn't change very much, regardless of who is in power. But ours has got a lot of problems. And that is why I was saying we should be very careful. And by the way, the UPC, you talked about the UPC earlier on. The other day I had Honorable Akena, during the election in Oyam, he was asked the same question everybody is accusing UPC and DP, that you people, you have joined NRM. He said, no. What I have done, instead of being adversarial to NRM, I've toned down and I engage them. And I want to find a solution to the problems we have. Now, there is another group who says we need a regime change. Now, those are two different things. We need a regime change. The other said, no, we want to talk to them. And that is what this, and DP has said the same. I think we choose to talk to NRM rather than being adversarial. And I think this is extremely important in terms of leaving all the innuendos which you keep on hearing. I think the whole thing is, do we need to talk instead of being adversarial? I will never meet Museveni no matter what he does. I mean, but he's the one who is in the power. For us to be able to get something from him, we need to talk to him. And I think this is something we should think about very carefully when we are talking. And I enjoyed listening to Akena, and he brought a very good, this was before the election, and I said deep inside, this woman is going to win. Because the way she was talking, first of all, she was very highly qualified. She's got a PhD in anthropology and history, and she was talking very nicely. And then I listened to Akena talking. I said, wait a minute. This man has said something that I had not even thought about. Tone down. No matter how annoyed you are, well, this is politics. This is not sparring boxing. This is politics. We need to talk. We need to find solution. The iPod was destroyed. Okay, people had accusation, iPod was it. But that was a start to be able to talk. Now, when we talk about this country, we should really be very careful. We should stop being adversarial. This man and me and you, we are the same. We might have differences in our conversation. That doesn't mean we are enemies. And this is something I want us to pick up. And therefore, all these parties, because I keep on hearing, somebody goes to Europe, to America, we want a regime change. You're Ugandan. You want a regime change by using Americans and lawyers of gay people. No. We need ideological thinking. What do we need to do for this country? And I want to end by saying this. If we don't get away from rumors, conspiracy theories, allegations and spinning things around, we are not going to get anywhere. And there are people in this country who want visibility, and they spin everything around. And eventually when you check what they have said, there's nothing.
Okay.
Now he's saying, our group said we should have an investigation, which I thought was the best way to go. And then after the report, we can
exercise patience till the report is
coming out. Now, when you hear people saying, no, we don't want it, we don't want. Now, that shows you that they don't respect their party. You should respect your party. And this is another thing we must learn about multi-parties. And I'll give it to you. You talked about America. Those Americans, when they want to say something that is very hot, they go behind the curtains. They don't even talk to the newspapers. And I'll give you an example. Remember Al Gore and Bush, when they had a problem in Florida, and Al Gore was accusing Bush for having rigged the elections? They went somewhere and they sat down and they talked. And I will tell you, that is a very powerful way of solving problems. Even the judge was there. Even everybody was in that meeting. And they came and said, listen, you have had 8 years. Let the other group also have 8 years. Let's not exaggerate our weaknesses to the world.
Okay. Speaking of weaknesses, allegations. We would have expected the alternate government to have a better way of doing things. Have allegations with evidence. That has not turned up with the special consultative meeting that was held yesterday. We were hoping for some form of documentation, some sort of evidence that, look here, this is where we believe is the suspected source of money. Then thereafter, you can probe and have the ability to stand boldly and make the statements that were made out of yesterday's meeting. What's the translation of that for the FDC? And I guess what I'm really asking, what is going to be the downfall of FDC?
Thank you, Priscilla. First and foremost, I think we should understand that the key players in FDC is a product of this country. They have not, come from elsewhere. And for a long time, we know.
I'm sorry, I have to laugh.
we know.
They're not from outer space.
They're not from the space. We are not from. We are a product of this country, and therefore we have gone through a number of, kind of, I would say, streaming and going through a lot of hurdles in this country. So whatever we see, it's not like we should portray something which we are not, because we are a reflection of the country itself. So the country actually is not okay. So we are definitely a reflection of that country, of the country. I am a person who have been working, with the international organization, including the UN, for a long time. I believe in the rule of the law. I believe in procedures. I believe in, being patient, because I'm a peace builder myself. I believe in peace building and conflict transformation, conflict resolution. I would also want, maybe, Sheila, if I am in disagreement with you, I want you to portray the same, you portray for me the same kind of, stuff. But if you are not, and for me, yesterday's meeting was a product of a response to not following the procedure and the system that we have. And for me, I don't blame the convener of the meeting, because when they're saying, let us suspend the own process of the election that is going on, and there's a resolution by an organ of the party, then somebody comes and says, no, why should we suspend this? We have to continue. You members, you go ahead and, let's continue with the election. For me, I feel really, I said, what is going on? And for me, that was the center of the problem. I do not want to say FDC is going to get extinct. I don't remember seriously any political party that has gotten extinct in this country. At least there will be some remnant. Yeah, that's true. There will be some remnant.
So then, what's the future of FDC with this uncertainty in leadership trust?
Yesterday, I made mention in this meeting. I said we should actually emerge even stronger out of this kind of fiasco. We should emerge even much more stronger. And we can only do this if we go back to our systems, if we go back to the rules and the procedures that we are supposed to follow.
Okay.
If we go back to the constitution, we go back to the policies, we go back to the laws. And I believe with the schedule 28th National Council meeting, which will be able to discuss this report of the elders about this money allegation, this data money allegation, we will be able to pave a way forward. I wouldn't really want to think that we should, you know, when Muntu came, there was a split, then somebody comes also, no, I disagree, then the person goes. I want to think that this challenge that we have should not allow us again to what? To disintegrate. We should emerge as a team, and probably my senior will say, why did you play some role? I want to pledge to play some role in this to make sure we emerge as a team and stronger as a team.
Our time is fast spent, but I will allow the senior. You've been scribbling lots of things there, but in a minute, just give us a closing to the future of multi-partisan politics.
Yeah, the problem is management. Management of a group of people, management of society, which is the politics of this country, and therefore the conflict which we are talking about. I hope, as the theories say, that when there is conflict, something better would emerge, and I pray that it does improve. Okay. We do have a little bit of a problem with the FDC. The leader who started FDC. When
you say we, you're referring to?
All of us.
Ugandans.
Or Ugandans, because it's our party. Okay. You see, unlike other people, me, I don't differentiate in these parties because I think they are vehicles. He has got a Benz.
So the problem that you have with FDC?
Yeah, the problem they have is going to be the leader, the initial leader had a different aura of management. And he controlled the party because of that aura. The people who came after him, I do realize they tried to use his method. It didn't work. The other person also tried to use the method, it didn't work. Therefore, they have a problem of leadership. You will need a good leader to bring this party around, and by being self, not following somebody else's footsteps, but to be able to make the party a better party. I don't think there is anything wrong in good management. A good political ideology should come out very carefully and should stop being regime change. Regime change. Okay. I don't think that can work.
All right. Well, a quote is stated, a good leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and equally shows the way. And so with that brings us to the end of our conversation this morning. We wait to see what happens out of the National Council sitting, and then thereafter we will see what follows up with the party in streamlining themselves and regrouping themselves for their ideology, which is democratic change. This brings us to the end of this conversation. We're going to be taking a short breather. We'll be back shortly. Do stay with us.